You mentioned there were some interesting developments yesterday with regards to remote ID. Can you talk a little bit about what happened?
Yeah, so really excited to hear. I think it was just yesterday we were notified that a draft of the final rule for remote ID has been sent over to OMB for review, which sets a 90-day clock for their review and potentially sets us up to be able to get that rule done before year end, which had been the FAA's goal. It's interesting because we'd been hearing a lot over the last few weeks about concern about the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi technologies and whether they could sufficiently accomplish the broadcast function of remote ID, and that the security agencies were DOJ, DHS, really indicating to the Department of Transportation that these are not sufficient technologies. As everybody listening to the podcast probably knows, two ways to accomplish remote ID. One is broadcast, and so the FAA's proposed rule talked about using Bluetooth and Wi-Fi technologies for that. And then a networked solution, which would generally use the cellular bands and the cellular networks and the internet to provide all of the remote ID information to smartphones used by law enforcement. And the broadcast function is supposed to work where you don't have that cell coverage. So that's sort of how it all breaks down. Anyway, we'd heard that there was really concern about the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi piece and that was going to hold up progress. I'd heard that from the FAA just 2 weeks ago. So actually, it's really interesting that it looks like they're going to push forward nevertheless and try to get this rule out. And we're very curious to see how all these issues ultimately will shake out in the report. The other rulemaking that went over to OMB is flight over people. And so there'd been a rulemaking about, what can we do to enable safe flight over people? And of course, many groups weighed in on that. And there are so many different features to safety, from the vehicle to the system that supports the vehicle. And, we'd weighed in about the importance of using secured licensed spectrum to be able to support those safe operations through the CTIA working group that I work with. So hoping we'll see a flavor for that as well when that piece comes out.